Hi everyone, welcome back to Booney's Herbs. In this video we are going to look at finishing off my Lygodactylus conraui enclosure. As you can see, I've got all of my plants, substrates, everything I'm going to need to get this tank done and ready for geckos arriving. The first thing I needed to do was set up the heating and lighting for the enclosure. I've already done that. The heat took a little bit of fettling around because of a method that I've used for monitoring the temperatures. I'll show you that in a moment. And the UV was obviously just pretty easy to set up. I'd already got my basking zone planned out, so just a case of getting the UV in there. So for my heating, as I've explained in previous videos, this bar, which will be cut down, has the thermostat probe going in. This goes all the way down through and into this rock. It sits inside about here in a metal tube. So the idea is that the heat lamp above, will heat the rock on the top, heat the metal tube inside, and that will provide temperature readings for the thermostat, and then that should control the heat. Now it's taken some time to sort out measuring the temperature that I want the thermostat to be reading. Obviously inside it's going to be different than the surface temperature. However, I now have it pretty much how I want it, with the lamp on around about 60-70% power, giving me a nice reading of about 37-38 degrees there or thereabouts, which is exactly the basking temperature I need for my geckos. That's been on for around about 3 hours now, so it's pretty well settled in. And then you can just see the UV and heat overlapping on the basking zone, making a nice spot for the geckos to bask. Finally, I've added the jungle dawn on the risers that we got from Amphibipod. That'll just prevent them overheating on the glass. It allows a bit of free circulation of air, so the LEDs will last a lot longer. Anyone that's seen jungle dawns knows how bright they are as well. And I think that looks smashing in there now. So it's just a case of getting everything put together. So step one with any vivarium build is to decide whether or not you're going to need some drainage. Now, being a tropical species, there's going to be a lot of moisture, a lot of humidity in this enclosure. So I am going to need some drainage in there. There's many different options you can use. Some people prefer rocks, some like pumice stone. Whatever method you choose, as long as it creates a space underneath the substrate for water to drain into, it doesn't matter, it's personal choice. I'm going with Hydrox. Popular choice, they're lightweight expanded clay, otherwise known as leca. I get them from Bioactive Herbs. And the good thing about these is they have micropores in them which wick up water, so if your substrate starts to dry out on top, it'll wick any moisture at the bottom back up into it. I find that really useful, it just reduces the amount of times you've got to spray. Very handy for high humidity species. Now I've had these soaking for a few hours now in water. The reason I do that, first of all, it cleans off a lot of the dust. The Hydrox can come, they're a bit dusty. It's not a problem, it's just a bit of an annoyance. But it also helps them soak up moisture into the rock. So once they go in the enclosure, they're all ready to wick moisture up. What I like to do is get a substrate depth of around 1.5 to 2 inches of hydroballs. Just enough that we're going to allow moisture to drip down without it overfilling very quickly. So I've got handy sieve. I'm just going to sieve them out and put them in the enclosure. And there we have our drainage layer. I used warm water for soaking these, so it's steamed up a little bit. Hopefully you can see where the top of the steam is. That's where I've got my levelled hydro walls. That's all it is. If you're not sure how much you need, all you need to do is take the width and the depth of your enclosure, times them together, times it by how deep you want it, and divide by 1,000. So times it all in centimetres, then divide by 1,000, and that'll give you how many litres you need. I find a 45 by 45 base deals with around about a bag of bioactive herbs hydrox. Not sure on other brands, not checked them. I've lost a lot of depth with my background, so I needed a little bit less than I actually thought. I didn't account for that. There it is, in its glory. So next up, on top of the hydrox, you're going to need a permeable membrane that will cover the drainage layer, ready for your substrate going on top. It'll help stop the substrate mixing in with the hydrox and then ruining your drainage layer. So I've gone with bioactive herbs drainage mesh. The one I have is 60 by 60 centimetres. I'm working on a 50 by 50 base here, so it's a little bit larger than I need. Like that. It's a welded mesh, really strong, really permeable. It's absolutely perfect for this use. So I am going to cut that down, just because it's a little bit too big for me. The great thing about this mesh is, even though it's really strong, a pair of scissors is all you need if it's a bit too large for your enclosure. There you have it, drainage layer done. The next step is throwing on the substrate. So the substrate I've chosen to use for this enclosure is the premix range premium Tropimix from Bioactive Herbs. This is an ABG inspired blend, so it matches the Atlantic Botanical Garden substrate to a level, with our own little flair on there. Suitable for most high humidity enclosures. It uses tree fern substrate in there, so it's antimicrobial, really good for humidity, lots of nutrients that the plants will be able to access, especially once we've mixed in some plant boost. It's just a really good, top-notch tropical enclosure substrate. And there's no secret to filling this in, just throw it in. Again, in order to calculate how much you need, you can just calculate the surface area and volume. However, I have purchased 3 bags of this, and I don't think I'm going to need all 3 at all. You can get a bit more, mate. So I'll flatten it down a little bit. So what I might do is I'll get my plants in place. If I need any additional substrate after that, I'll add that in afterwards. Otherwise, that'll just go to future enclosures. So next up, we need to install all of our plants. I've got quite a good range here. Some of them you'll see from my unboxing video at Bioactive Herbs. Some of them I've got from elsewhere, just lying around. I'll just go through a few of them, some that you might be familiar with. So we've got a nice big peperomia, nice sturdy plant. It's just going to provide some sort of low bushy coverage down in the middle. I've got a ficus, which I'm going to be taking this part of it off so it can open up and be a nice bush for the geckos to hide in amongst. This will probably be my feature plant. It's Calathea. Yeah, it's beautiful and that really nice flowers. They'll eventually die off, but hopefully more will sprout in time. I've also got some low plants, Syngonium, Neon Robusta, a nice little bushy pink plant, some Fittonia. I've got various bromeliads. Some of these will go either into the ground, or I've got some pieces of wood that are going to be going in. I might drill them into that as well. Pothos, Camedarias, there's a fern there. Nothing particularly too special, but I think they'll suit the enclosure quite nicely. Once they've all grown in, the geckos will be able to utilise them quite well. As I plant them, I will be using the Bioactive Herbs Plant Boost. So it's a safe fertiliser for use in terrariums. I'll just be putting a little handful of it at the bottom of the roots for each one. That should really help them dig in and get themselves settled. Obviously then I'll top up with substrate as we go. So you'll notice as I go, I'm using a bucket of water to help me rinse off a lot of the excess soil. And I'll be putting some of it in a bag as well. So it's important when you're planting to get as much of the natural soil off there as you can. Free the roots up as best you can, and that way they'll integrate into the enclosure a lot easier. So my first plant is going to be my feature plant, my Calathea. That's going to go, I don't know, we'll figure it out as we go. I don't tend to plan this out very well. Stand it in the bag and remove as much of the soil as we can. Obviously being careful not to damage the roots. A couple of little roots around the edges, not so bad. If you start damaging big roots, then that's where your plant's going to start to struggle. Really tricky to get off, then you can have to dip it in water a little bit. That'll just help loosen it. So there's still a bit of soil left on there, but most of the roots are free. That's going to allow me to get planted. So this one, I think, I'll keep it away from the heat. I want it to be fairly central, so she's going to sit. Yeah, so I'm just going to dig a hole for her, spread her roots out, cover her back up, really push that soil in amongst the roots. Get some extra soil on top of there. That's going to look quite nice there, gives it a little cover. So the next plant I want to go for is going to be a Camedarea. Camedarias are brilliant. They don't look like much, but when you put them up against like a bare glass side or against the background, it can help hide certain areas, providing geckos a lot more space to feel secure. So again, just going to pull the pot off, shake this off. This one's got a lot of perlite in it, which you'll notice. This is something a lot of people are concerned about when they buy a new plant. Perlite is completely harmless. It's just it's a natural volcanic rock that's used for moisture retention. The only thing with it is obviously it could become a choking hazard, and it's I find it really unsightly if you happen to forget to remove perlite from a plant and it gets dug up. The perlite just looks really bad. To be honest, most of it looks like urates, so it looks like you haven't cleaned your tank out. So there we go, Komodo now. That I could pull apart and split if I wanted to into numerous different plants, spread it out across the enclosure. I think what I might do is just get it into this back corner. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some plant boost down around all the plants and then start adding some more substrate in as well. Don't get rid too much, just sprinkle around where the roots are. Pretty much everywhere in this tank, they are all over the place. And this stuff really does work, I can promise you that. If you're looking to grow food for a species that eats whatever you're growing, it's worthwhile getting some of this. It's not going to cause any harm to your animals in the slightest. Do for in there, still got loads left in the bag. Probably top it up in a couple of weeks whilst it's growing in. So now we've got plants in place, we're just going to add a few extra levels of substrate in there. I need to do some pieces of wood with bromeliads in, get them in, somewhere for the geckos to climb around on. That's looking really nice. So I've now got a bromeliad mounted into some liana vine. This is just going to go sit in the enclosure. As they're really small geckos, I don't have to worry about their weight shifting it too much. Push it in gently. So now like that. And I've got some, I think this is just a small type of liana. Again, quite small geckos, so they are going to climb up on here. I probably want to put a few extra branches in at some point, but for now that'll do. I know there's a temptation to get your enclosure set up and get an animal in there as quick as you can. But it really does pay off. You let the enclosure settle for a few weeks until anything goes in there. So I know it's going to take a few weeks for my supplier to get hold of the geckos I'm after. I haven't even contacted them yet. As soon as I've got the setup done, I'm going to give them a ring. And then hopefully in a few more weeks, the tank will be ready and they'll be ready to come to me as well. So the liana and the bromeliads are going to act as water sources as well for the geckos. I'm not going to have a bowl, they'll lick off the leaves, but the water will also settle in some of these holes, these divots rather, and they'll be able to drink out of them. So, finishing touches, we've got the plants in, they've all had plant boost used. So I just need to get the bugs in and get some of the other boost range products in, which I'll do in a moment. So the plants are in, the decor's in there, everything's pretty much ready. The only thing now is to do a few final touches. The first thing I'm going to do is add some bioactive herbs bio boost. This is a microbial mix, so it's got loads of beneficial bacteria, microbes, mycorrhizae, all sorts of things that are going to help keep the plants alive. They're going to cycle the ammonia and the nitrates, the nitrogen cycle is going to run through because of this. It's really simple to use. So the top capsule's 5ml. You squeeze the bottle, 2 pumps of that, so 10ml in a litre of water, and just spray it everywhere. I'll be using that once every 1 to 2 weeks. To start with, once the geckos are in there, I can use it every 6 months probably, depending on how well the cycle's going. You can test it with standard ground testing kits, and that'll just help everything settle in. So I'm just going to give that a quick spray all over. That's the Bio Boost. I've then got for now I've just got 2 types of insect to go in there, so tropical grey wood lice, springtails. It's Doncaster show in a couple of weeks, might get something a bit different to add in there, however the geckos are going to probably eat the wood lice, so I don't want to get anything too fancy, bit of a waste of money. And of course springtails. So the bioactive perch springtails come in clay. That's a much better substrate for culturing springtails than anything else I've found. It remains moist without being overly waterlogged. The springtails seem to absolutely thrive in it. I'll go to the camera. You can see they're everywhere, so it's really simple. Just tap them in. The clay should roughly stay put. Of course, if any clay does come out, it's not a concern. Pick it up, put it back in the tub. And what I'm going to do is, there's still loads of springtails in this tub. If I put that somewhere warm and dark, I'll add a bit of food and I'll let them breed. So I'm just going to grab this camera and you can see springtails everywhere. Bug boost, It's really good food for the springtails and the woodlice. They seem to love it. Don't need too much. Just going to sprinkle a little bit up the front. And I can keep an eye on it. See if they're actually eating. It goes mouldy. Some of that will last you forever. And last but not least, morning gecko pods. I'm really hoping the geckos will lay into these. I'll put one in this top corner. And the other, I think I'm going to put down under here by these plants. And hopefully that gives them a choice of places to lay. Hopefully they'll pick it. Obviously this has all got grow in yet, so it'll look a lot thicker in a few months. And there we have it. My enclosure is ready for geckos. Thank you for your time.